So Navya, let's start with who has defined you the most? Even though you are from the film industry and the world of business, you're all extremely well-mannered. And somewhere there, I see the influence of Jaya Bachchan.
Bad manners for me would be a big red flag.
It's just a lot of respect and gratitude for what they do. And I think that's what makes us all the way we are.
So is the dining table or our meal time like feisty?
For anyone who's seen our podcast, you can see that every episode is a clash.
I'm sure you've had these conversations around the dining table about the irony of the fact that it was Amitabh Bachchan who first got into politics, but Jaya who stayed.
She's always been a very patriotic person, and she's always told me that, growing up, her dream was to join the army. That's what she actually wanted to do. Yeah.
You're the first woman now to be at the helm of the sort of agri-machinery-driven escorts business.
So that was all I knew and all I saw as a kid was tractors. And to me, that was and still is the coolest thing ever. I learn the most when I dabble in different things. So whether it's, assembling a tractor to, walking the ramp in Paris for L'Oreal. Like, to me, those are...
I mean, do you hear yourself?
Yeah.
That's like, from assembling a tractor to walking the ramp in Paris.
I just think it allows...
But I love it. I think there's an entire generation of Indians who grew up on the poetry of Harivanshrai Bachchan.
My Nana has always, since we were kids, read his poetry out to us.
Man ka ho to acha, na ho to zyada acha. If things happen according to how you wish, that's good. But if they don't, that's even better.
So Navya, let's start with who has defined you the most.
Oh God.
And I ask you that because there are so many people you could draw inspiration from in your family.
Yeah.
It's an illustrious family, it's an accomplished family, it's a famous family. And on both sides of the family, there has been sort of strong personalities. The most endearing thing I think I read about you recently is that when you were a child, you used to think that the crowds outside outside your family home in Juhu were for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have had a charmed and unusual upbringing.
Yeah.
Who or what has defined you the most?
That's a very hard question. I don't think
it could be more than one person or one thing.
I don't think one person, because there are so many people that you learn different things from, especially in my family. And I think I've spent so much time with my grandparents growing up, and still do. We all live together, which is, an unusual thing for...
Do you all fight?
Young people. Yeah, I mean, we don't fight. We have very healthy debates on a lot of things, which I think is very important.
Yeah. So is the dining table or our meal time like feisty?
It's
exchanges of opinions?
It's a lot of conversation around things that are relevant today and that matter. And it's always nice to get a perspective that you don't have because, they've lived a life that we haven't seen or that we haven't known. So their perspective is always very interesting, especially for someone like me who's still young and still learning.
What is the intergenerational clash the most on?
I think, for anyone who's seen our podcast, you can see that every episode is a clash. Every episode is a disagreement or a discussion. I think, surprisingly, there isn't a clash. Like, though we are very different in our ways of how we are as people, we actually have very similar values. And I think more than anything, I think that defines who I am. I think it's the values that I was brought up with. And they're a very specific set of values that both sides of my family have instilled in us.
If you had to put words to those values, what words would you use?
I think the first thing that we've kind of been grown up around has been a lot of family and respect. I think respect is something that is at the heart of who we are as people. I think whether it's my grandparents to the youngest members in our family, my cousin and my brother, we all have a lot of respect, not just for each other and not just for people, but also for what we do and the work that we do and, where we come from. I think that is a word that I think each and every single member of the family lives by and abides by, which is...
I'll tell you what really leaps out is how, even though you are from the film industry and the world of business, you're all extremely well-mannered. And somewhere there, I see the influence of Jaya Bachchan, who seems like the sternest, strongest matriarch that a family could have. You know, somewhere like, and I love Jaya. I love her. I have so much respect for her, and we'll get to her in a moment. But there is something about that sort of very proper conduct that really leaps out and makes you all very different.
I think, for us, it's like a bare minimum, right? As human beings, that you conduct yourself a certain way. So
where did that come from?
I think, honestly, she plays a large part. My grandfather plays a large part. On my father's side of the family, my dadi was also a very, very, very powerful matriarch, a very strong woman, somebody who, you know, we all really looked up to and loved. Someone who's also inspired my entrepreneurial journey a lot, because she was a businesswoman herself, and you know, she started her own business, and she always advocated for me as a young girl. She always said that, you know, you should always work and, you know, be financially independent. So those were a lot of values that I grew up around also. But I don't think that there's one individual who enforces it. I think it's something that we all just understand that, okay, this is how we are as a family. And I think all of us have very similar mannerisms in how we talk to people, or how we are at home, or how we are at work. And I think that's all come from watching each other do it on so many occasions. Like, I've grown up watching my father and my dadi and, you know, my father's side of the family, more in the business context, approach their work. And then I've seen my nani and my nana and my mamu and, you know, my mom and everyone also approach their work. And though two very different fields and two very different professions, I think the commonality, like I said, is just a lot of respect and gratitude for what they do. And I think that's what makes us all the way we are.
I'll come to your, you know, to the many hats that you wear in a moment. But I was just listening to you and I was thinking, your grandfather took the plunge in politics first and then left to never return to it again.
Yeah.
And your grandmother, Jaya Bachchan, has really stayed the course.
Yeah.
And she stayed the course with full flamboyance and lack of apology.
Yes.
Her speeches are always viral. And the most interesting thing about Jaya Bachchan is that she never sees herself through the lens of other people. She is so completely herself. She says what she thinks. She calls a spade, you know, and she doesn't give a damn. Now, when, you know, I'm sure you've had these conversations around the dining table about the irony of the fact that it was Amitabh Bachchan who first got into politics, but Jaya who stayed.
I think if you talk to her about her life, you know, though she, you know, has also worn many hats, you know, not just in her professional career, as, you know, in her personal capacity as well, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a sister. And I think if you talk to her, she's always been a very patriotic person. And she's always told me that, you know, growing up, her dream was to join the army. That's what she actually wanted to do. Yeah. And she's spoken about this many times. Like, it's something that she's always wanted to do, was, you know, fight for her country and, you know, do what she could to make her country better and, you know, to help the people in her country. So I think that is the perfect hat that she wears now, as, you know, in the political sphere. I think she is someone who has always wanted to do that. And I think at this point in her life, she's seen so much, she's lived through so much, that I think she's now at a point where she feels that she wants to give that back. Because she says that, you know, I got a lot from, you know, my country. You know, I got a lot of love, I got a lot of opportunity, and, you know, having seen and lived through all of that, it's now my time to kind of give back. So I think it's great to see her, you know, do something that she enjoys doing, that she loves doing. And, you know, she's, like you said, somebody who's very unfiltered, very honest. Yeah. And I think that's what is required, you know, when you look at politics today, or, you know, any profession.
Do you follow her parliament speeches?
I do, yes. We all do. When I'm in Delhi, I go and stay with her. So she'll always tell me about her day, and she'll always talk about, you know, how her day has gone, or what she's talked about, or what she's going to talk about. And I think even if you see a lot of her speeches and a lot of what she speaks on is very relevant and related to women, you know, and that's something that has inspired me a lot, you know, because she talks a lot about the well-being of women, you know, protecting women, the safety of women. And I think that's something that she's spoken to me a lot, and that's also inspired a lot of what I do, because I've seen her fight for that. I've seen her advocate for that. And I think that's something that should never stop.
Women, as you know, and you work so much with gender, get caricatured, trolled. Sometimes social media can be toxic enough to be abused. Whether it is your grandmother or whether it's you or your mother, I'm sure you've had to deal with your own share of that. How have you reconciled to living in the constant public eye, seeing maybe people you love and care about being memed, being spoken of badly? Do you block those comments? Do you tell yourself, I'm just not going to read the comments? How do you cope with it?
So for me, it's a very different approach, because I have actively made a choice to be in the public eye through the work that I do. I host a podcast. I also run a non-profit which works for the welfare and being of women.
Project Naveli.
Yes. And so that is something that I have chosen actively as a career choice, that I want to do this. I want to do this for the betterment of the world around me, and especially for the women around me. So for me, I think as somebody who is public facing, who's especially in the development sector where you do work for people, it's extremely important for me to be receptive of what people have to say about my work. I don't take it in a bad way. I try to look at it in a very constructive manner.
What's the cruelest or meanest thing that you've read about yourself?
The internet is all things great and all things bad. There are two sides to it. And of course, there are sometimes comments that you'll see about yourself or your appearance. But I think for me, it's more about my work, because that's what I put out the most. I don't put a lot of my personal stuff out.
So you'll engage with the stuff that relates to
my work.
Maybe, Escorts or Project Naveli or campaigns that you're associated with. But if it's about how you look or, your personal life or your family, you will not engage with that.
No, because for me, the platform is being used to share what I'm doing in a professional capacity. So, and I don't really put out a lot about my family or like personal
I know,
stuff,
but your family, I remember your mom once saying to me, look, it's a fishbowl, right?
Yeah,
it's a fishbowl. And everybody has an opinion on the outside of that fishbowl looking in. And you're young, you're human. There must be moments when...
Of course, you do read things and you do feel bad. And of course, it does affect you, especially more than when it's said about you. It affects you the most when it's said about your loved ones and your family or your friends or people that you really care for. But I think that we all understand and know that this is a life that we've all chosen. We're all actively choosing to be here in front of the public and do what we can in our own capacity, whether it's through a movie or whether it's through a book, whether it's through a non-profit, to do something for people. So I think that the joy that we all get from just simply doing that far outweighs the sadness or the pain or the insecurity that you feel, of course, when reading all of these things. So I think for us, it's always about the joy and the gratitude of being able to still go out there and make movies or write books or, run a business that allows us to keep going and not focus on the negative sides of it.
So let's talk about the many hats that you're presently wearing and sometimes juggling. So you're completing a management course at IIM Ahmedabad, which is what, a hybrid?
It's a blended postgraduate program. So it's 2 years full-time, a blend between on-campus and online classes.
Has it been tough?
Of course, it's been tough. I think anyone who's done an MBA, and especially from IIM Ahmedabad, can tell you it's definitely challenging, but it's been a great experience going back to school. I'm still adjusting to having give exams again after 6 years of not being in a classroom. So it's a great experience. And I think for me, the best part of this, of course, I have the greatest professors, the curriculum is amazing, but I would say that the best part of this entire experience are my batchmates and the friendships that I've made in the last 1 year. The things that I've learned from them is far more than I've learned inside the classroom, because they are the most incredible people that I have had, And
also from a very different background, I guess, mixed, varied backgrounds.
Very, different all around the country, from different fields, from different areas of work and expertise and different ages. And I think it's been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life so far, just being able to be around people that are so dedicated to what they're doing.
Amazing. And then you're running your family business, which is not a typical zone for women. You're the first woman now to be at the helm of the sort of agri-machinery-driven escorts business. How did that come to be? You made a conscious decision at some point not to enter the world of cinema, but you haven't quite left the world of glamour, right? So there is this sort of dualism, if I may call it that. So there's this sort of very masculine, typically masculine, I don't like gendering professions, but in terms of perception, sort of the world or the work that you do in escorts. And then there is, campaigns for L'Oreal or all the other stuff, you're frequently on magazine covers. You are steeped in the world of Mumbai and glamour and movies. Talk about these two worlds.
So I think it's also about, for me, I feel like I never wanted to restrict myself to just one profession. That, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I will only do that. For me, I'm somebody who loves trying new things, who loves to do different things. And I also feel like I learn the most when I dabble in different things. So whether it's, assembling a tractor to, walking the ramp in Paris for L'Oreal, like to me, those are...
I mean, do you hear yourself?
Yeah.
That's like from assembling a tractor to walking the ramp in Paris.
I just think it allows...
But I love it because it doesn't pigeonhole you.
Exactly. And I never wanted to be boxed into one category of, this is all that she is. I want to be able to do everything. I want to at least try to be able to do everything. I know that that's a hard thing to do. But for me, it's also not just about work. It's also about who I am as a person. I'm someone who has many interests. I'm somebody who, loves reading a book, loves playing sports, loves...
What are you reading right now?
Currently, I'm only reading my textbooks and cases. I'm not getting enough time to read.
What's the last great book you read?
The last great book, I reread the Dune series again while I was on holiday. So that was very exciting. I'm a big sci-fi fan, so I love reading science fiction books. But that's the last thing I read, and I'm currently waiting to read the new book by Kiran Desai. She just got longlisted for the Booker, so I'm waiting to read that book. But it's a very big book, so I'm gonna have to go on holiday to read it. But yeah,
your mother is another voracious
I think
reader,
that's where I get it from.
Wrote a book.
Yes.
Is that something you're planning as well?
I am in the process of kind of working on something, but she is, of course, a genius at fiction.
You're thinking of writing?
Yes,
definitely. On what?
Non-fiction. I want to write about, young people, because I work with young people. I'm surrounded by young people. I think young people are the future of this country and of everything that we do. And I think there's a lot that people don't know about young people. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about Gen Z as we've been boxed into this one category. I feel like there's a lot of misconception. There's a lot of misinformation about who we are, what we want, what our ambitions are, what our dreams are. And I think what I want to write is going to kind of give a slightly more clearer picture of who the young people of India really are. And that's
very interesting because Gen Z is like probably one of the most debated generations, right? And like some of the clashes are genuine and maybe some are caricatured. And have you begun work on this? Like, have you?
Yeah, so it's not something that I'm, of course, can't as an individual sit and write about Gen Z without involving Gen Z. So we actually are working with, young students, young people all around the country, researching, interviewing them, talking to them about their lives, their priorities, their ambitions, and then collecting that and putting it into a book.
So we've got IIM, we've got tractors, we've got walking the ramp in Paris, we've got writing, we've got Project Naveli, which is all your work in gender. And how many hours in a day do we have?
24 is clearly not enough hours.
Is this something that pulls you more than other things?
I think all of it is parts of me. All of it is something that, like one part might be, slightly more theoretical or might require more cognitive. Whereas, say, like when I'm doing a podcast, that for me is especially the people I have on my show, which are my mom and my nanny. I think it makes it easy to converse with them. And I think that for me is more of a personal side to it where, I show a lot more of myself, which I don't get to maybe do when I'm at work, assembling a tractor or talking about tractors. That's, something that is different personalities of mine come out in the different hats that I wear. And I think that's a good thing because it allows me to live all versions of myself during the day. Whether I'm in a meeting for work or whether I'm, brainstorming what to do for the book. It's a creative side of me that comes out. When I'm in Delhi working with my father, it's more of a strategic side. It's more of a responsible side because it's also a very long legacy that, we're carrying forward. And it's also an industry which means a lot to the nation. So I think that's more a different side that comes out when I'm at IIM. I'm a student. I'm back to being a child again in the classroom. When I'm with L'Oreal, it's embracing a side to me that I've really grown into, which is being confident, which is being comfortable with the way I look, with the way I sound, with, the way that I am as a person.
Was that ever not the case?
I think growing up, I was always a very awkward child. I still am a bit shy and socially awkward.
I mean, every role that you do is so sort of front-facing.
I am a bit shy, but I think, being comfortable in your own skin is something I've learned over time, over experiences in my life, over different phases of my life. So I think, being a part of L'Oreal allows me to live that wholeheartedly. And I think that's a side of myself that I've really recently grown into in the last 5 or 6 years, where it's like...
What do you remember about the time when you weren't confident or comfortable?
I think, when you're younger, I think all girls kind of probably go through a phase where they're shy, where they're awkward, where they don't feel confident enough, or where there's a lot of self-doubt, there's a lot of...
What did you have self-doubt about?
Probably about, myself, what I would do. I didn't have answers. I think when you don't have answers...
You didn't have a clear path.
Yeah, you don't have answers, when you don't really know, then it causes self-doubt. When, you're younger, you're still growing into your skin, you're still trying to be comfortable with your body and who you are. And I think all of that has now accumulated to me.
Did you wrestle with body image issues?
Not body image, but I've always been a very shy person, like a very anxious person, even in school, like even now, like very
But what
anxious.
is that? Performance anxiety? Like, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to do this well?
No, I think I'm a doer, so I
Type A personality
I'm
problems.
a very type A personality,
Yeah.
so I have to constantly be doing something. I have to constantly be, occupying my mind, and that's why my mom is like, you keep doing 100 things because you just want to constantly be at it. But that's where I find my peace, when I'm doing. I'm not someone who can sit still and not do something. So I have to read, or I have to write, or I have to watch something. I have to constantly be doing something. So I think that's something I've understood about myself as well in the last couple of years.
You worked on a L'Oreal campaign on security on the streets, right? Against harassment on the streets. What made you pick up an issue like that?
So I think...
it's self-evident in a way, but like, why that particular campaign?
So I think for the last couple of years, I've been working very closely with women through Project Naveli and the work that we do. It's also something, of course, we all see, whether it's in the news, whether it's in a personal capacity, whether it's just being out in public. You see
or public transport, or
how
coming
safety
home,
of women is a lot of times not a priority, or not something that is thought through. And actually, before we, L'Oreal and I started working together, I think what I loved about them as a brand is that it's not just about, they're willing to have the harder conversations. They're willing to do what it takes to, of course, it's all about, feeling confident. Now, whether that's when you put on a lipstick, or whether that's when you're walking out of your house at night, you still have to be confident. You have to know, you have to have the comfort to know that you're going to be safe on the streets, you're going to be safe at school, you're going to be safe at work, and, even at home. And I think that's what really aligned what I was doing with what they were doing. And that's how the partnership really began. And I think it's something that we all have to work towards. I don't think it's something that's simply women can work towards, because I think men play a very important part in creating safe spaces for women. They play a very important role in our lives, as partners, as fathers, brothers, uncles, colleagues. And I think it's something that can't just be it's not just a woman's responsibility to make an environment that's safe for her. And I think this campaign kind of really showcased that, because it said that it doesn't put the onus of feeling safe just on the woman herself, right? It's the whole point of the campaign, which is the stand-up campaign, is what you can do as a bystander. What can you do to intervene, to prevent something from happening if you see it happening?
Yeah.
So the entire training that the campaign, there's an online training. We've done a lot of offline trainings in colleges as well. It all talks about ways in which somebody who is a part of society, whether that's a man or a woman, to intervene, to help, to stop, to prevent something from happening. Or if you see something happening, a lot of times people freeze and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the largest problems, is that often you'll see something happening and you're not quite sure what the right way is to
intervene
to
or
stop
help.
that, or to help, without putting yourself at harm as well. So I think this allows you to, the entire campaign talks about 5 ways in which you can do that. The training program is not very long. It's a 10-minute online training. It just walks you through different steps. And I think it's important for people to know and be prepared for when you're out and about, because it's something that happens on a daily basis. We don't hear about it often until it becomes something it shouldn't. But to prevent that, you need to start with the smaller steps. And I think that this is a great way in which people can do that.
If I'm not wrong, your interest in your work in gender began with the issues of menstrual hygiene. Do I remember this correctly?
Yes.
And I wanted to ask, and that was some years ago. Feminism isn't one book. It isn't like sort of the biblical truth. It's a work in progress. We're all conditioned in various ways, and then life makes us re-examine our positions every day. Sometimes life changes your assumptions. Like, if I think of certain things, I had very simplistic textbook notions of things when I was 18. Today I have a more textured perspective of that. Since you began with menstrual hygiene to now, with all the lived experience that you've had of life, and you'll have much more, do you find some of your assumptions changing? Do you find there's intersectionality? What's important to us as women of privilege? It's so far removed from somebody who stays in a village in, somewhere in Rajasthan or Maharashtra.
I think the biggest thing that I learned, maybe not a conception I had that changed, but something that I learned, was that it's not about, because I've seen this happen a lot, when there are conversations around empowerment and women empowerment and certain choices that women make. And I think that is something I've learned, is that it's not about whether you're a CEO or a homemaker. It's about having enough respect for the choice to be whatever you want to be. And I think that
and for the choice to be a free choice.
Exactly.
Women often don't have free choice.
Without judgment of saying that, you're just a no one's just a homemaker. And I think that is something I've learned through the work that I've done, is that a lot, mothers, especially homemakers, don't get enough credit for the work that they do. And I think that's something I've realized, because you usually give a lot of credit to a CEO running a multi-billion-dollar company, juggling different departments, but a homemaker is juggling, and is responsible for building the next generation of leaders. And I think that is a very, very important role that we don't give enough credit to. And I say this a lot because, now that I'm a lot older, I look back at, how I was raised, and I realize that both my parents, spent a lot of time and gave a lot of themselves in order to shape me into who I am. And I think only now am I realizing, which is my mother's famous last words, that you will realize when you're older. And I've come into that realization that is a very, very selfless job, and it's a thankless job. We don't say thank you enough to our parents and for the people who raise us. And that to me is empowerment, is to make the choice to do that without having the judgment of, you're not working. You're working far harder in a far more tough circumstance than most people realize when it comes to homemakers.
That's why the whole debate around whether homemakers need to actually be paid, because it's often seen as unpaid work, which takes me to the question of women and financial independence, which is something that I feel very strongly about, because I feel that to not have an income of your own unfortunately alters confidence, equality in personal relationships, just the freedom to make those choices that you're talking about respecting. And I don't know if I did I read this correctly somewhere, that when you were kids, your Christmas presents used to be life insurance policies and like
from my grandmother,
not like candy.
No, and we wouldn't understand it at like 7 or 8 years old, because we knew every year for our birthdays and for like Diwali and for Christmas, all big festivals, we would get a folder with a sheet and she'd be like, "You'll thank me one day." And we had no idea. We'd be like, why is she giving us a folder every year? And I think you only understand the value of that once you grow up and you start working. And going off your point also, I think financial independence is something that, of course, is very important. But also oftentimes I understand that a lot of people, sometimes a lot of women make the choice not to be. And that's fine too. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think as long as it's a choice that this is what I want.
Not wrong or right.
This is what
but I'll tell you, I went to Patna recently and I met a woman who was a street vendor. She was a street vendor and she was selling some food that she made, and she said that she never worked till COVID. And in COVID, she found that one person working wasn't paying the bills and their child got ousted from school because they didn't have the money to pay the school fees. And so she decided, and she's clearly from a lower income background, and she decided that she was going to start working at that time to make ends meet. So it was a decision born from economic compulsion. But many years later today, she's working from the joy
of wanting to work,
and also the joy of having an income that she brings home.
It does hold a lot of power. And I think especially for women, it makes you feel powerful. And I think that's something all women deserve to feel. And we've had stories of, from the work that we've done, we work very closely with women from across India. We through one of our programs met this lady who was, part of Seva, which is based in Gujarat. And, she spoke about how she had a tough time at home because her husband was an alcoholic and he would beat her.
Yeah.
And, she was the only one who had to go out and make money for the home. And once she did start earning money through the multiple initiatives that Seva supports them through, she got her first debit card. And that night she went home and her husband came to hit her with the bottle, and she just raised the debit card and he stopped because he realized that next drink would only come from that debit card. And he understood the power of just simply that debit card and the amount of power that she now held.
Yeah.
And that changed her whole life. That removed her from the situation that she was in. And I think that is so important for all women to feel.
How do you, as someone who cares for and works in gender with Project Naveli, but is also a young woman who is followed by other young girls, how do you carry that responsibility? Because you're still young, you're still finding your own way, you're probably going to maybe have some different views 10 years from now and then another 10 years from then. In particular, we live in this age of Instagram, social media. I've seen girls look at Instagram and almost everybody who's grown up on a diet of Instagram filtered images hates their bodies, right? How do you, being beautiful, glamorous, coming from the film industry, coming from a background where image matters, how you come across matters, reconcile or are careful for that not to become a source of pressure for girls to live up to an impossible ideal?
Yeah, I think, I can speak from personal experience of, how I have approached it. I think that, of course, there's something that people have to understand in general. There'll always be someone smarter. There'll always be someone with longer hair or better abs or, more toned legs or, someone who's better in an exam or maths. I was horrible at maths. There was 10 people better than me at it. There'll always be someone who is more, inclined towards sports and does better. There's always something out there that will be bigger or better than who you are in the context of other people, because we're all individuals. And I think that for me, what helped me navigate through all of it is that the only comparison I need to make is with who I am, and would I be proud of who I am 10 years ago? Like if 10-year-old or 11-year-old Navya looked at who I was today,
correct,
would she be proud of the woman that
correct.
she's become? And I think that is the only comparison that I make, is to myself now and to myself in the past. And I also compare it the other way around, that, I'm proud of the fact that despite all the insecurities that you have as a woman or as a young girl, you're comfortable in your skin. So I think, like, for me, the comparison isn't with the world, because then it's an endless comparison.
Agreed.
Because everyone is only talking about success. No one's talking about failure. No one's talking about, the fact that they woke up today and didn't feel too good about themselves. You're only posting and putting forward the best version of yourself. And so it's not fair to compare with that, because it's not a reality all the time, right? So the only comparison you can make is with yourself. And that's how I have tried to navigate, is that, I'm here today and I'm doing this, and that's better than maybe what I did yesterday. And that's a step forward. And for me also, success is not always,
measurable.
Yeah, it's in the smaller things. It's in the very, very small things that, I woke up, I felt good about myself today. I woke up, I spent time with my nani today. That made me feel, that's a success to me. It's not necessarily getting 100% on my exam, or, my stock price going up, or all those things matter. They matter. But I feel like for me, I value and I treasure and measure the smaller things, that allows me then to not make comparisons.
Have you failed at anything?
Of course, many things.
Like?
I have failed more than, of course, I've failed at many classes in school also. I was horrible at maths and physics. But apart from that, I think the failure that I would take more seriously is, like, I've failed as a friend many times. I've failed as a daughter many times. And I think that for me, or as a sister, I might not have been there for my brother sometimes, or I might not have been there for a friend when she needed me. I was too consumed in my work. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
So I think failing for me as a person is far scarier than failing as a professional. Like, that's what my mom always has told me, that it doesn't matter. I don't care, what grades you get. I don't care what profession you're in. You don't need to be great at maths. You don't need to be great at your job. You just need to be a good person. And if you can do that, that is a success for me. So for me, when I fail as in an individual capacity, that impacts me a lot more, and I self-reflect a lot more on that. And those, I would say, are my failures. Like, not being there for the people you love, or not being, a good friend when your friend needs you, or, being there for my brother or for my family. Like, those failures, if I'm not able to do that, that affects me a lot more than failing an exam or failing, at work.
Let's talk about Delhi and tractors.
Yes.
How much did you have to sort of teach yourself before you were able to take charge of the business?
So, I mean, I've grown up in Delhi and I've grown around
And you went to school
I went to school in Delhi.
At Sanskriti.
Sanskriti. So, I've grown up around tractors. I've grown up.
Are you comfortable? Like, do you know your way around one?
Yes, I've assembled one.
When you say you've assembled one, do you mean that you've actually
assembled on the
shop floor? Yeah.
So from start to finish, I've grown up around it. So that was all I knew and all I saw as a kid was tractors. And to me, that was and still is the coolest thing ever. Like just I get so excited about tractors that my friends all make fun of me because they're just like, everywhere I go, I see a tractor and I'm like, wow, like for me, that's what I love and it's what I've seen. It's what I do every day. And I really geek out on tractors. And I think for me, it was something that I grew up around. My father, my dada, my bua, my dadi were all involved in the business and all spoke about it all the time with so much excitement that for me as a young girl, it was never in my mind that this is not something that young girls are into, which are tractors. But for me, it was all I was in. I was obsessed with it and I loved doing it. So it was a very natural inclination towards wanting to join and wanting to help, carry all of this great legacy forward in my own capacity. And after college, when I moved back, I immediately first actually started my own non-profit, which is Project Naveli. That was the first thing I did because it's also equally important to me. So it's two things that, I want to do at the same time. That is what I started off with. And then I started working in the company. I, trained in the factory for almost a year and a half before even entering the corporate office. And I think that's how it should be. You start from scratch, and I'm still making my way up. I'm not at the helm of anything as yet. I still have a long, long way to go, and neither do I think that it's just me who can do this on my own. It's the work and effort and dedication of a lot of people who are part of this company and who are part of this vision that my great-grandfather had pre-independence. That's when the company started. And I think that vision has to be carried forward. So whether I carry it forward, whether it's the people who we work with, that's all that matters, is that vision is achieved. And my father has also been a part of it since he was 21 years old, 22 years old. So yeah, I think it's a long commitment that so many members of my family have given it. And more than anything, I don't look at it as that it's my birthright, because it's not. It's something that has to be earned. It's something that has to be shared with people. It's something that belongs to everyone else. It doesn't just belong to me. It doesn't just belong to my family. It belongs to the people who work in the company, the dealers, the farmers, everybody who's in the ecosystem. It belongs to them. And I think that's what's so great about the company, is that it doesn't belong to just one person. It's a whole family, and that family is an accumulation of many, many, many people who want to work in this because they love it.
And that's a lot of passion there, which is lovely. But did you ever think of joining the movies?
No, never. I was
never, not even a blip or a phase?
Never. And I always get asked this, and I always like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't.
You don't know why?
I don't know why, because
it was just not there.
I feel like I was always raised, in a way that my parents told me that don't do something if you're not 100% passionate or confident, or it's something that you really want to do. And it was never something that I wanted to do. I always was fascinated by tractors and my dad and what he was doing, and when he'd come back from work, I would talk to him about it. That to me was far more exciting. But I do enjoy watching movies. I love listening to music, and as part of the work that my family does, I'm constantly watching what they're doing, watching what other people are doing.
And your closest friends are from the
I love
industry.
Consuming it. I love consuming the content, the songs, the movies. One of my secret talents is that I know the hook steps to every song possible. But I love it for what it is. I love it for the medium that it is, because I think it holds a lot of power. There is so much that we've learned as young kids watching movies. There's so many iconic lines, there's so many great songs, and I think it is an industry that holds so much soft power. There's so much influence that you can have from that. So I respect it and I love it for what it is, but I never wanted to be a part of it. My interest and my excitement and my passion lies somewhere else.
You and your brother both studied outside India after school, or a few years into school, I think.
Yes.
And then you came back. What made you come back?
So I knew I wanted to work in the business. I knew that I wanted to come back to India. I knew I wanted to live in India. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life in India. And that's why I also wanted to study and do my MBA in India. I didn't want to go abroad. And I think that's one of the best decisions that anyone can make, not just me, anyone. Because if you've had the privilege and honor of entering an IIM classroom, you will know that it far outweighs what I could have experienced from the world. And, it's really the best education that you can have. And I think that that was an active decision. I knew I wanted to stay here, and I knew that I only wanted to go to IIM Ahmedabad.
Good for you.
And I, studied for that exam for a year because I knew that this is where I wanted to study. But I think it was more of a choice that I knew I wanted to come back and work in the business, which is based out of India. This is my home. This is what my family is. Even when you travel for 10 days, you miss home. And I think that's what it is. I just wanted to be back. I wanted to play my part in whatever I got from India, because I feel that it gave me so much, even growing up in Delhi, being back here in Bombay. There's just a beauty in it that you can't find anywhere else. And it has nothing to do with, just, your family's here and your friends are here. There's just so much more. And I think that that's what...
It's intangible, right?
It is,
it's very difficult to explain. I mean, I did my journalism in New York, and I was so sure after it that this is the only this is my home.
There's no question about do you want, no, it's like, when are you going back? That's all it was. It was never a doubt or question that I wanted to work anywhere else but back home. And I think that it gives me a lot of pride in doing that. It gives me a lot of happiness knowing that the work that I'm doing, or even like the business that we run is for such a large chunk of the country. It's for such a large portion of our economy and of, the overall industry. And it gives us a lot of pride in doing that, knowing that you're doing something that is giving back to your country. And I think that's a big driver that brought me back.
Absolutely. I relate totally. As we end, I want to talk not so much about your grandparents, but about your great-grandfather.
Yes.
And, I think there's an entire generation of Indians who grew up on the poetry of Harivanshrai Bachchan. And I'm curious to know how much of exposure you've had, how much of his poems have you read? Are you able to recite them? I'm assuming you never had the chance to meet him.
I mean, I was very young.
Very young. So, yeah. So how has that sort of legacy influenced you?
So actually my grandparents from both sides, my dada dadi and my nana nani, have always spoken to us about our great grandparents, and we've heard stories about all the great things that they did. With my pardada, that's what we call him. My nana has always, since we were kids, read his poetry out to us. So we are very familiar with the poetry. We are very familiar with everything that he did, he wrote. I've read his books. I've read his poems. We sit sometimes in the evenings and my nana will open up one of his books and read the poetry out to us. And reciting it I would never be able to do justice to the words, but my nana recites a lot, and, we sit and ask him. He'll tell us stories about, the times in his life when he wrote a particular piece of poetry. And
are there lines that have stayed with you that you remember? So
there's a line that my nana says all the time that now we all live by, which is "Man ka ho to acha aur na ho to aur bhi acha." And it just goes by the basic philosophy that if you really want something from your heart and you don't get it, that's even better, because then it's up to destiny, it's up to God, it's up to life, and that will never give you something that's not for you or that's not good for you. So that's something that he always said to my nana, and my nana passed that down to us, and it's something that we really live by and will continue to, I think.
So let me end by asking you, what's in your man for the future? You're already chasing all of these multiple dreams. Are there others in the pipeline, things that you're excited by, that you're sitting up at night and saying, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this? What next for Navya?
I mean, honestly, nothing that, I have work-wise. I would say I want to, just keep doing what I'm doing, because honestly, a lot of what I do is to make my family proud. I think we all do that in our own ways, so I hope that, when I graduate next year from IIM, I know that they'll be proud. I know that they'll be happy. I think that's something I'm looking forward to. I don't know if it's something I have planned, but I'm looking forward to having them all there with me at my graduation and knowing that they'll feel proud and happy and probably tell me not to study again, because I've just been studying continuously for the last 2 years. But that's something I'm looking forward to in the coming year is the graduation and having them there with me.
So may your dreams be large.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.